Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second annual Raise the Vibe with Liz Expo. I am so excited about today. It's been a great year on the podcast, and I've had wonderful guests, and I'm so happy to be able to share them with you. And today I have 6 of them joining me today. Our presenters today, in order of appearance, are seer and scientist Elizabeth Wood at 11:30. Master energy coach and transformational powerhouse and owner of the Shakti Bomb method, Katie Kozlowski at 12. Meta coach and teacher, public speaker, event facilitator, certified life mastery consultant, behaviors analyst, and founder of Tribe 525, Jamie Wolf at 12:30. Transformational coach Lacey Gurr at 1 o'clock. Consultant, educator, psychotherapist, and founder of School of Day Nova, Eva Papp at 1:30. And owner of Intuition University and Empath Intuition University, author Aimee Cartier at 2. And I have a few of them with me right now. Hi guys, how's it going? Thank you for joining me today. So excited to have you. So the chat is available. Go ahead and share where you're joining us from. And any questions you may have, I have the Q&A available for that. So please ask if you have a question, put it in the Q&A. I'll be browsing the chat too in case I see any there. And we'll get those answered for you at the end of the talk. Everyone is going to be talking for 30 minutes, and then we'll see if we have any questions. So thank you. Gosh, wow. Goodbye, 2020. I don't think I'm alone when I say I'm thankful to see 2020 in my rearview mirror now. It was quite the roller coaster ride this year. It's been difficult for so many in all areas of life and from all directions. The word resilience has been in my head the last couple days. And I just want to say that I hope you all continue to be resilient in 2021. The new year is a gateway, a time for new beginnings, a fresh start, inner reflections, a time to look within, set resolutions, goals, and ambitions for the new year. And I hope today you gain more insight from these presenters that I have sharing today with me and get inspired, feel renewed, and revived. And thank you for your support and your donations and joining us today. It helps bring this content to you and events like this. And I'm looking forward to bringing you more in 2021. God, I can't believe it's been a year already since I did the last Expo. The last Expo was here on Vashon Island, and it was so great. It was for my Raise the Vibe radio show on Voice of Vashon 101.9 FM. And I had all of the presenters that year giving 20-minute talks and having tables set up for meet and greets. And hopefully we'll be able, fingers crossed, to be able to do that again soon. Yeah. I started the radio show to highlight people in our community who could be part of our support team. And the silver lining and opportunity to this lockdown for me was having the space open up to be able to start this podcast. So I'm really excited to take my mission off island and reach a broader audience. We need support, and we need support more now than ever. And there are so many resources and people we can tap into for comfort, support, and learning on our journey. We're here during this time, during this COVID time, this time of crisis, because we chose to be here. We chose to be part of this time of leaving the old behind and creating the new. And I'm so excited to be creating the new. Some of us on the front lines of this transition. And my guests today are definitely on the front lines. There are a handful of them. And I'm honored and blessed to work with each and one of them and say goodbye to 2020 with them and start 2021 with intention. Phew. I just keep thinking back to 2020 and how difficult it was for everybody, all the people on the planet, you know, not just me and my little world, but all over the planet, all over the world. All of us with our own unique lessons and some shared ones. All of it taking us out of our illusions that we were living on a day-to-day basis. And we're headed toward a new normal, which on many levels is a good thing. We have to keep detaching from the fear. I keep reminding myself this. We can have it, but we don't need to attach to it. Keep our focus on the higher outcome. Where we put our attention, our energy flows. So putting our attention on a higher outcome instead of a lower one is beneficial for all of us. So that's where I'm going to be putting my attention in 2021. We have to ask ourselves, what do we want to create? Because we co-create our reality. We create it by our choices and our focus. You are a creator. You are a manifester. I've learned this over the last couple of years more than ever before. We can choose a higher timeline, keep ourselves out of that lower timeline. And I know I'd rather choose the highest and best outcome and try to do so on a daily basis, especially now. It's been a year of struggle, but it's also been a year of growth. It's been a year of loss, but it's also been a year of opportunity. It's been a year of opposition and turmoil on the streets, but it's also been a time of coming together and a time of creating an innovation. Tongue twister. So let's have an intention of holding a higher vibration for today and the year to come. And that this energy we're creating ripple out into our communities. We can unplug and stay focused on what we want to create. Awesome. So let's take a deep breath. I'm going to lead us in a little meditation. So just take a deep breath so our energy comes together. And just place your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your abdomen. And placing your hand on your heart and your abdomen brings your attention to your body. So let's come out of the outside world, come away from everything that's on our to-do list, and just be present in this moment. Just be here now. And breathe that in. And I like to ground down into the planet during my meditation. So let's take our ethereal cord down into the earth, taking that cord all the way down to the molten lava core of Mother Gaia. And we can bring her energy up, inhaling it into our bodies and connecting above, taking that cord out of our 7th chakra, connecting to the heavens, the galactic center, all that is, and allowing that energy to come down into our bodies. And let's bring ourselves back into our bodies, into our centers. A lot of the times we're in our head, we're outside of our bodies. Focus on bringing your energy into center. Take breathing that in. And let's connect to our energetic body. Let's be aware that we have chakras and an energetic field around us. If you don't know about them, that's okay. Just have awareness. Let's be aware of our first chakra, right around our sacrum and our tailbone. Visualize the color red, grounding us into the earth, safety and security, being part of the earth. And moving up to our 2nd chakra, orange, our creativity. Just allowing that color, that energy to come in. Our passion, sexuality, moving to our third chakra, yellow, family of origin, I am, our heart, our bridge between our lower chakras and our upper chakras, spinning green, love, compassion, receiving, up to our fifth chakra. Bring your attention to your throat. Light blue. Just imagine that color all around. Communication. It's an important chakra to have open, especially right now. Expressing your creativity. Having a voice in the world. Sharing yourself. Breathe that in. Moving up to the third eye center between your eyebrows. Indigo blue. Intuition. Ideas. Knowing. Your seventh chakra, top of your head. Connection to spirit. All that is. Your channel, divine knowing. White to white violet. And noticing them all, red, orange, yellow, green, sky blue, indigo, white to white violet. Breathing energy up from Mother Gaia into our chakras. And down from the heavens, from the all that is. And for this new year, for today, I ask Archangel Michael to be present with us today. I ask, please remove everything that does not belong to me, us, everything that is not for our highest and best good. All energy, cords, patterns, and programs return to source and be healed in all directions of time. And fill our chakras and our energy body with your healing light. Let's come into our hearts. Breathe that energy into our hearts. So allow everything to release. And let's expand that heart energy. Expand it into your body. Just let that heart energy fill your entire body, all the way down to your toes, through your shoulders, all the way down to your fingertips, neck and head. Taking that energy around you now, letting it expand into your energetic field, into your aura. Into your emotional, spiritual bodies, your etheric body. Breathing with it, taking the energy in. Allow it now to stretch out into your space, to your home, car, wherever you may be joining us from today. And into the space around your home, your neighborhood, your town, your community, expanding it ever further into your state, expanding it. Now expanding it farther. Your country, the waters that surround you. Let it bless it and nurture it. And taking a deep breath, expanding it all around the earth. Into the outer space, the far reaches of our galaxy, our Milky Way. And breathe it in. Sitting with it. And repeat quietly in your mind, I claim my sovereignty. I claim my personal power, my liberation, my mind, my body, my emotional state, and my physical state. I align with the highest version of myself in the most benevolent way possible. Better things come to me. I accept my life's abundance. Every experience is the next best thing for me. And your I am statements. I am strong. I am free. I am abundant. I am worthy. I am enough. I am thriving. Breathe that in. And just let it sink into all of your cells. Bringing your awareness back to your energy, bringing it in now to the earth, to the state, to your town, your city, your neighborhood, your yard, your surroundings, your home, yourself. And breathe that energy in. Release anything else that's holding on. Just let it go. Just let it go. Coming back into the room now. So let yourself come back softly. Take a deep breath. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Flutter open your eyes. Take a deep breath. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for joining me, everyone. All right. So let's get to our speakers. Our first speaker today is Elizabeth Wood. Considered an advanced seer, Elizabeth works on the cutting edge of galactic and quantum anthropology, trauma healing, and futurism. With her lifelong ability to see into and work with all dimensions, her theoretical and psychic work has helped people all over the world. Called Living Library and Oracle, Elizabeth has spent her whole life studying anthropological theory, quantum physics, ancient and modern medicine. She has 2 science degrees, including a master's in applied anthropology. Her philosophies and practices bridge science and spirituality to support real change in the world. Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Liz. I'm so glad to be here with all of you and all these beautiful speakers.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
I love starting out because it's pretty fun. We get to start out in some nice mysticism.
Yes. All right. There you go.
Good. I really I pondered what we should talk about today because there could be so many angles to come together around raising our vibration. And I never know exactly what I'm going to end up needing to talk to you about until we all come together. So here we are. So the first thing I want to show you is that you have an opportunity now for clarity. And that's something we all really, really want, because this past year we've had to go dig really deep while simultaneously being traumatized. And 2020, if it's being defined by anything, is the internal realization of who am I really? When everything else is ripped away, when everything else, the whole rug out from under you, who are you? So we've been asking that question over and over again this past year. And we'll ask it again today, but with a bit of a different mindset. And we need to ask it with clarity. The thing that blocks you from clarity is trauma. It's trauma and ego. And so trauma is consciousness under pressure. What is this consciousness? That's the you we're really trying to inquire in. What is this you anyway? Well, that's an essence. That's a very specific frequency, and everybody's got a different frequency. And a lot of people have different descriptions for this thing that we're talking about. We're talking about either a frequency or an essence, and it's an aspect of consciousness that happens to be individuated as you. So my aspect of consciousness, my frequency is illumination. My job is to act literally as a giant flashlight. And if I have ego and trauma distorting that, then what I perceive, perhaps even on your behalf, is not going to be the full truth. So let's talk about how do we move these out first. And it's fairly straightforward. There's a method behind it. First, you really need to welcome this. There's nothing wrong with this. This is information. And I understand the concept of timelines, that we really do want a best outcome. And that best outcome is less suffering. But every timeline is equal because they all go to the same place. They all go back to source. So if you don't worry about the timeline part so much, you come into the now so you can really see the structure that distorts what you see and what you perceive and how you react to it, then that's the job at hand. So you got to notice that pressure that you've been under And let's just notice it right now. So if you can notice the pressure of 2020, holy cow, literally a galactic level vice that's created an incredible amount of pressure. And what does pressure do? It puts molecules closer together so it becomes more solid, right? It becomes like form. That's what trauma is. So you've been traumatized. We've all been traumatized. This is something that now we can all relate globally, like, oh my gosh, the whole of humankind has been traumatized. And then we're like, wow, okay, hang on. This trauma's been going on for a long time. It's been going on in this whole thing that we've been calling the patriarchy. And the patriarchy is a small portion of a larger trauma called the power over paradigm. And that's even part of more trauma that goes back beyond this planet. So now it begs to question, wow, this trauma is very interesting. What's this trauma made of? It's trauma's made of frequency, just like you. If you put your consciousness under pressure, that creates trauma. Trauma is frequency, it's information. All frequency is information. All light is information. All consciousness is information. So find it. Notice the trauma. Notice that there's layers of it. Notice how that trauma has been put under pressure too in this vice grip of 2020. That is ego. Ego is trauma under pressure. Ego says, all right, after all of what you've learned as a soul, here's how I'm going to protect you in the patriarchy, in the power over paradigm. This is what you've got to do to survive so that people don't cut your tongue out or burn you at the stake or banish you from society, right? So what do you do with the structure? You got to go into it. You got to open it up. You got to reveal it, because Liz is right. If you put your attention on it, what does it do? Well, it can do either one of two things. It can either amplify it or dissolve it. Well, when something happens around us each moment to trigger some of that trauma, we do ego ping pong or trauma ping pong, right? And it's just our structures hitting the ball back and forth. And it's actually trying to reveal to you this structure, because this isn't you. This isn't you at all. So once that's revealed through your triggers, that's actually amazing. That's exactly what you just co-created with another soul so you both could see the game and the trauma and the structure and the ego that's in the way. It's distorting things, right? So triggers are treasure. It's a good motto to keep saying to yourself. Hey, I'm triggered right now. This is good. This is a good thing, because now I can feel it in my body. Maybe it's in your pinky. Maybe it's in your nose. It can be anywhere. It can be anywhere in your whole body, because your emotional body is married to the physical. Your spirit is married to the physical. They're not separate. So use that. You can check in with your mind, your heart, your gut, or whatever particular configuration you like to work with. You check into the body. You need to feel it. Someone might say something mean to you, right? And you always feel it, bam, here, because the heart field is so big, so it picks it up first before your brain does, and then your brain reacts to it, and that's when the ping pong starts. But you can catch this now that you're aware of it, and you can notice it. Oh, this hurts. And then with gratitude, you get to have a lot more presence as the true you, the soul you, the essence of you, that says, thank you for that, because you just showed me where I'm traumatized, and my ego wants to protect me because I've had this happen before. Over and over again, we would have built up a protective way of interacting. instead of a clear way of interacting. Instead of saying, hey, I appreciate you want to start ping pong with me at the moment, but what if we stepped back and looked at the game board here that we've just created together and had a different approach? We don't have to play tug of war or ping pong. It's very disarming. It's disarming for someone to actually embrace something that is troublesome or difficult. And so go into your body and just notice. And if you want a faster way of doing this, do some recapitulation of your life. Everything you need to know. You don't need to know all your past lives if you believe in that or not. You need to know what happened in this life. This life has everything you need. Go back and look at your own timeline, embrace it, recapitulate all of the trauma and all of the lessons and all of the light. It's giving you everything you need to know about you, the real you. So recapitulate and use that to help you find the structures. And then something might happen that normally would have happened before, and you won't have a reaction. That's how you know you finished with the structure. You've revealed it. You opened the trash bag and you said, what is this made of? Anyway, it's made of frequency. Frequency can't hurt you. You can only learn from it. And you say, wow, thank you. This is great. Now I really understand this concept of blank, fill in the blank, right? That's the first piece, is what we would call emotional processing and recapitulation. It's as simple as sitting down and writing out a timeline right now. Great time to do it at the beginning of the year with more clarity. All right, I'm trying to dig out the trauma. I'm trying to dig up the structure that's in my body that's keeping me separate from and distorting who I really am. And it's keeping me separate from everything else and the truth of that too. Then you don't have to worry about the future, right? You just leak energy in the future anyway, or worrying about the past. So you stick with the moment, but just like an XY axis, right? Normally we'd be moving along the x-axis and we might be thinking about the future or the past, but there's another direction of consciousness in the moment. You can zoom in and out of that moment. You can look at one moment while actually above the whole planet and examine that moment from a whole planet's and collective viewpoint. It's as simple as imagining it. Everyone feels like they get blocked by their third eye. The thing is the third eye is the imagination. You can go anywhere and do anything you want with your imagination. So if you want to try that out, just practice, just pretend. The pretending isn't really pretending, it's you moving your consciousness around. Zoom into something. What if you had someone in front of you that was especially difficult, right? What if you zoom into the frequency you're feeling from them? Maybe they're totally racist. That's a good example. Or maybe they're really so staunchly wanting to be in control, right? That they're pushing anything out of the way that might break that sense of control. So you go into it, go into the frequency. What is it really like to sit in that frequency of racism? Does it hurt? Does it burn you? Because if it does, then there's structure there that needs to be burned away. So sit in it. Sit in it until it's fully burned away. And then it doesn't create a ping pong game of trauma anymore. Doesn't mean you have to be okay with racism. It's the other way around. You won't be traumatized by it anymore because it won't have power over you. You'll know it so well as a soul and a body that it won't have power over you anymore. And then you can look beyond that frequency to say, why did this soul bring in racism to protect themselves? Because that's exactly what it's trying to do. That's what they've brought it in to do, is to protect themselves and say, I don't want to be around people who are different from me because that scares me. Something happened to them. So same with someone who's totally trying to be in control of everything. They're terrified. They're terrified that they'll lose control. Something terrible happened. They're traumatized. All these very awful feeling frequencies are begot from trauma. And so if you're noticing it and if you're zooming in and you're acclimatizing yourself so deeply to something that it doesn't have power over you anymore, then you're getting to know the library of consciousness. It's full of frequencies. The whole library of consciousness is full of frequencies. Some of them are these peak separation frequencies, like racism, bigotry, wanting to be in control. We can name lots and lots of them. Peak separation frequencies. The other side are peak oneness frequencies. Beautiful feelings of oneness and connection that we really want to recreate as much as possible. And we want to avoid these, and then we want to create these, and that leads you to the grand polarity of consciousness. Fear and desire. Fear and desire are showing you who you are. Everything that you've pulled in, everything that you've co-created with all of these creator beings here on this amazing planet, in this incredible experiment. Now it can be recapitulated, the whole of it, the whole experiment, because the experiment is over. It's over. It's over. And now we get to start a new one. But that's what you signed up for. You came here so you could be part of the new one. I certainly am here to do that. And what better way to start it than to notice in ourselves all the structure that distorts our true essence, and to realize that you have brought forth a template of wisdom. That's what your essence is. The original experiment was built with all these wondrous templates of wisdom that helped get us through an incredible co-opting of a magnificent experiment. And it turned out to be magnificent anyway. But what was the hypothesis that we started with? The hypothesis was actually, is the universe really made of love? And we proved that it's true. Yes, it is. It's made of love. Love triumphs over all things, but love isn't one of those frequencies in that library. Love is the library. Love is the library. Why would you stand in a frequency that is a peak separation in frequency so that you could be able to love the person who is a bigot in front of you unconditionally, without their issues having power over you, so that you could unattach yourself from trying to control and keep and maintain peak states of oneness all the time, and actually become a purely neutral, singular frequency of source, an individuation of that source field that is all intelligent, and of course is the creative energy behind the multiverse. So if you stood in the middle of the library, which is a big circular library, you know, peak separation, peak oneness, all the mundane, regular stuff in between, they're all equal, all these frequencies, because they're contained by unconditional love. What would it be like if this year you found your true power and you stood in that light, because power is light, light is power, and you stood in that light and you didn't react You didn't find a reaction or trigger to anything. You only had unconditional, unbounded awareness and love for everything that was happening around you. What would that be like? That's where you can create now your experience. And where we are going to create this experiment, the new one. We haven't created a hypothesis yet, but I suppose it would probably take that whole love piece and put it into action. It's something that many masters have alluded to for a while. So now the new question might be, well, since everything's made of love, what would it be like to build a whole experiment based on that? There is no opposite to this love. Love is one word for it. We could also call it source or the source field. In mathematics, we would call it the source field, right? In cosmology, they're trying to go deeper and deeper. In quantum physics, they're trying to go deeper and deeper to figure out what is this whole thing made of, and they all come to the same conclusion from different vantage points, that it's a singular field of consciousness. In mysticism, we call it love because it contains all things. It welcomes all beings, all consciousness, all frequencies are welcome here. And then that great neutrality, anything can be created in the moment with your attention. So you might put your attention on something to dissolve it, like your structure of ego and trauma. You might put your attention on something to amplify it or to manifest it. So we could manifest an experiment in consciousness that says, what would it be like if the foundation was only love? And then go from there. We don't know what's going to happen. That's the cool part. Anybody who might tell you about what the future is going to be like, well, they're picking a timeline out of bazillions of timelines. But it's actually all here in the moment now in you where all that begins. So you've got to really envision it in the moment. What do you really want right now? Clarity. Everyone that I'm doing sessions with keeps saying, I want more clarity. One lady said, I don't even know what I need. That's another way of saying I need clarity. And I'm not here to give you direct clarity and give you answers. I'm here to help you to get your own clarity, to empower you, because that's the new paradigm that I think that we can create. It's not created for us. This isn't being laid down from above. It's an empowerment paradigm where we co-create, we collaborate. And that means we collaborate with people we don't like too. That we find the common ground, and it can begin in you as unconditional love and non-judgment. Because judgment, all that is really, is your discernment, your clarity, getting run through your trauma, getting run through your ego and trauma. That's all. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that if that's something that's so heavy, then it's going to distort everything around you. So then you don't know what you need. So from here, my offer to you is to contemplate who you are. Ask that question every day. It's not going to be that I'm a seer. It's not going to be that I'm an anthropologist. It's not going to be my full name or any of my nicknames. It's not going to be that I'm a sister, daughter, mother. It's none of those things. Be willing to release yourself from the structure of identity. You're something so much more precious than that. You are a very pure form of light that holds the most precious, specific type of information and frequency that is needed right now. And that light, it wants to take over. It wants to become this body. That's what incarnation is. To consciously be that intelligent light. So contemplate that, ask that for yourself. Contemplation doesn't mean you have to mull it over with your brain mind. Contemplation happens in the heart. So you put it into the heart field and you let it bloom. Let little petals open for you over time. The other thing I'd like to offer you to contemplate, to allow it to bloom in the garden of your consciousness throughout this year, is full remembrance. Ask for that. Plant that seed in the field of your heart. I want to remember exactly who I am, exactly what this special essence is, this frequency, this beam of light that's coming from source, that's unique in all the universe. This is why competition isn't real, because how can two wavelengths of light compete? They're so different and unique and special. They can't. Competition doesn't exist. That comes from the power over paradigm. Just drop it. What can really exist is collaboration. And so if yellow and blue get together and they merge together and they say, we're going to collaborate, let's see what shows up. The most beautiful form of green will arise. A new beautiful light that's available in consciousness then. Does that mean you have to have a big, huge email list and a really great functioning business and all that? No, that's another misnomer. Even if you just started your brand new special you business today, everything that you learn, everything that you teach, every thought you have, every hope you have, it's available in the field. This field of consciousness is very real and measurable. I'll give you an example. During the time of Nikola Tesla, the CIA had actually been keeping a dossier of about 45 people who were inventors all over the world who had no idea who one another were, and they were all inventing the same stuff at the same time. How is that possible? Because of the field. And I can list off many, many, many examples throughout eons, even before the internet, where all of that was happening. Another good example, even older, many tens of thousands of years, suddenly humans all over the world started farming. They didn't meet each other. They definitely didn't have internet or telephones, so what happened? Consciousness is in the field. The field is you. You are that whole field. You're not separate from it. You're being informed by it all the time too. So if you feel totally overwhelmed and bombarded as an empath or a seer or a knower, that's totally normal. You're not crazy. You just have a superpower and no one's taught you how to use it yet. But your essence came in and wanted to use those skills. They wanted that essence, that frequency that is you, wanted to use those skills for this new experiment. So if we name it, the hypothesis being, can we build a new experiment based on the incredible power of this source field, which is love? Attain a state of oneness, no matter what, no matter how different the frequencies around us might be from us. And could we name it a new paradigm, the empowerment paradigm, where we're constantly telling each other, hey, you have so much power. You have so much power. Power is light. Light is information. Ask for that remembrance. Let it be in the field. Let the light of your essence come in and help you from both sides, burn away and reveal the true nature of all of your trauma and all of your ego stuff. And notice how your reactions will change. And then meditate. There's so many ways to meditate. I'm a terrible meditator. I cannot close my eyes and meditate. I'm too psychic. I just see so much. I get thrown out on some other planet and good luck trying to bring me back. So I actually do gazing. I do tritrika, which is gazing, and I gaze at a singular point in front of me. I like to use the Sri Yantra to do that. And that way my brain is stilled because your eyes are simply a branch off of your brain. And the mind stills. If you get your mind still and your emotional body still, then the only thing left is your essence. And that gets to then fill up the whole field. And you are the field that is, of course, the source field too. So here we have this chance to ask ourselves, who am I really? What is that frequency that I am? I want full remembrance. You just ask the field. Let it unfold. Let it be revealed. I want to remember that. That means that your mind will remember it, not just your body. And the last piece is ask that question. What would it be like to build a new experiment on the foundation of source, which is love, and name it the empowerment paradigm? What would that be like? Because that unfolds beyond you and it draws these beautiful people like these panelists together. It draws people who can collaborate in harmony with you together. And then it continues to create a grander and grander presence and oneness of mind where there is no more separation, because it never was actually separate anyway. Now we just reveal it. But it starts with you being able to find that self and have it revealed inside of you. And then that ability, the nature of that, and how you did it is available in the whole field. And there'll be many, many other people simultaneously doing the same thing and learning from each other. So that's what came up today, what we should talk about. I'm so glad. You're muted.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. What a great contribution to the day. You're amazing. Does anybody have any questions for Elizabeth? Light is power, info source, love. What about darkness's role, dark's role?
It's all a frequency. Remember, darkness, density, all of these things are simply consciousness under pressure, right? So your job is to find if you are triggered by it or not. Deep, deep into darkness, which I systematically do as a mystic. It's my job is to go find the darkest, darkest, darkest thing and open it up and merge with it to find the depths of it so that it has no more power over me, but that it's informing my soul. And then there's no separation, and then there's only compassion. And I really, truly mean it. I used the bigot and the person who wants control as an example, but I could go even darker. I could go to the depths of darkness that would make us all uncomfortable. But all of it's made of light, my friend. It's all made of light. It's made of information. It's simply consciousness under pressure. Once it's revealed and you merge with it and you let it burn away all the difficult, burning, nasty trauma stuff, it's finally got no power over you. The outcome of it is this huge opening of compassion and love. And then you're like, I'm done with this book. I'm finished. I know about it now. Now this doesn't trigger me or surprise me, and it doesn't cause me to resist. It doesn't cause me to find more trauma stuff inside me. Now I know this so fully, it doesn't have power over me. That's why it's called an empowerment paradigm now, not a power over. Because people and groups and nations used to use some of those frequencies like terror or fear or war to have power over humanity. It's all over and done with now. That's why it's the end of the experiment. So here we are now with this awareness. It's available in the field. You have it too. Anything dark that's dark around you, why is it dark? It's dense, right? One single match. I've been in Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave is huge. It's also very, very dark. And every time you take a tour, they turn off all the lights, right? To show you what real darkness is, because there's zero light down there. And then some clever tour guides would light a match. A single match lit up that gigantic cave. That's what you're doing when you go into the dark and you say, reveal it to me. With your consciousness, you're bringing light to it. And you know what it does to the other people, groups, places, situations around you? It disarms them. They don't have power over you. Everything they throw at you, you get to know it, you reveal it, you illuminate it. And then they're either going to want to collaborate and understand, or they're going to hightail it out of your field because they don't want to be revealed. So that's the role that the dense darkness plays in this universe.
Is it always dense?
Sorry?
Someone asked, is it always dense? Is the darkness always dense?
So far that I've found, at least it's uncomfortable. And it depends on the peak separation frequency you're facing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it is. It's a peak separation frequency. It's separation. It's power over. So if you really examine these things, everything from hunger to, that's separation from nourishment and abundance, to rape and slavery. These are power over energetics. But if you merge with them, they don't have power over you anymore. You can't be enslaved. You can't have these frequencies build up in your body as trauma and ego anymore. I really mean it. I mean this, and I don't want to get too explicit because I've had crazy stuff happen to me in the past year or two, like all of you too, where it tested me on this stuff, okay? So yeah. I really mean this. This is a method. It's a way to navigate consciousness. And it's not easy, not at all. But the gifts of this are empowerment, remembrance, being able to truly know who you are. And no matter where you are then, you'll be standing in your power. And that can illuminate any corner, no matter how dark it is.
Yes. Wonderful. What a great way to end. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right.
Namaste.
Namaste. All right. We're going to move on now to Katie Kozlowski. Let's welcome Katie. Hi, Katie. Let me unmute you. Let me go ahead and read your bio. Hi, Katie Kozlowski is a master energy coach, transformational powerhouse, and the creator of the Shakti Bomb method, which works with sacred feminine energy in simple and relatable ways and teaches you how to become your own creative powerhouse. Having been through the journey herself, from the heights to rock bottom and back again, she openly shares her unique stories and experiences as teaching tools alongside ancient wisdom and sacred teaching. and is widely known for accessibility, compassion, and joy, as well as her ability to make even the darkest journeys sound fun. Welcome, Katie. So happy to have you.
Hi, thank you.
You. All right, I'm giving you the floor.
Wow. Um, Hi everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And the segue from Elizabeth and those questions into my talk, I think is perfect because I am somebody who has a very strong focus on shadow integration, darkness, trauma, and helping you transform the heavier, denser emotions and feelings. So I'm looking at the questions coming in around resistance, what's the role of darkness? What is the power of actually feeling your feelings fully? And that's the kind of work that I've been doing for the last 10 years. I would say 40 years actually, because of my journey as throughout my life. I grew up, I experienced a lot of trauma as a child. I experienced a lot of it in my teens and my 20s, all that icky stuff like sexual abuse, objectification, rape. I've lived it, and it's what I deal with on a regular basis. So I take it very seriously when I talk about the power of healing your trauma, and also the power of actually digging into what makes you who you are, your story, and the empowerment that comes with being able to own the fullness of who you are. My journey is interesting because I came through a spiritual community. I came through my own process of needing to heal myself, finding myself in an environment with a guru and in a position where I was learning a lot of amazing, amazing things about the wisdom and the healing power of love and all of this. But I was also very confused because, I never quite understood what I was supposed to do with all of the hurt, what I was supposed to do with the pain, and the shame around the fact that I had struggled in the way that I had. It's like there's such a focus on the raising your vibration and reaching the higher levels and ascension that I was personally often struggling with. Like, okay, so like, what do I do with the fact that this happened to me, and how do I go about doing what Elizabeth is saying, right? To let it go and to, be the person I came here to be. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, just because I know how confusing it can be when you have been through a struggle, or you've been through challenges, you've been through traumas, and there's this emphasis on wanting to get better and wanting to do better. And the thing that I found is that most people come to me and they say, okay, so I have been working at this a long time. I'm doing everything right. I'm investing in my healing. I'm investing in myself. I'm doing my meditations. I made my vision boards. I'm doing it, but it's not working. Things aren't changing. Things aren't getting better. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why I'm working so hard at this and the struggle is being perpetuated. And so that's where I come in, because I found that there's a lot of information out there, but a lot of people struggle when it comes to knowing how to actually break through those barriers or remove the obstacles, dissolve the heavier, denser emotions. And I created Shakti Bomb, which is my transformational method, to help you do that, because the thing that I discovered was that the most important thing that we can do is to eliminate the resistance, right? To eliminate the shame, to eliminate the blame, to eliminate the negative feelings that we have. And by doing that, open ourselves up to the healing and to the fullness of who we are. One of the biggest mistakes that I saw even in myself was that I I wanted to heal, right? And I wanted to do such a good job. Like I was just the most devoted student. I loved God. I loved my teacher. I loved the teachings. And I really did do everything right. But what I didn't understand at the time was that because I was focusing so much on the doing a good job and being a good student and the love and the light, that I accidentally cut myself off from the other half of myself. So when you start to look at things like what is the role of darkness? What is the role of trauma? What is the role of struggling, right? What is the role of these quote unquote negative emotions? I started to discover that in order to really be a fully embodied person, you need them. And I was shocked by that. I thought, like, wow, I always thought that if I got rid of my shame, right? If I got rid of my pain, if I stopped acting the way that I've been acting my whole life, then I would be better, right? Then I would be happy. Then I would reach that point of enlightenment, or, I would be the spiritual teacher that I've always wanted to be. I would reach that pinnacle. And the strange thing is that the more I tried, the more I found that I was being sort of catapulted back into the struggle, right? Back into my darkness, back into my trauma. And it was like I couldn't escape it. So if you're someone like me and you're finding yourself going, I'm doing all the work and I'm working really hard and I'm putting all this time in and I'm not getting better and I'm not getting what I want and I'm not, I don't feel like I'm there, and you're frustrated and you're depressed and you feel hopeless and you feel sad, I want to remind you that there's a reason for the fact that you feel the way you feel. There's a reason for everything you've experienced up until now. And there's a reason why you're not able to fully express yourself. And everything lies in the ability to love and accept everything, right? Love and accept the trauma, love and accept the things that have happened to you, and open yourself up to actually seeing the things that have happened in the past, right? The things that have shaped you and made you. Because 99.9% of the time, what we do, because our subconscious loves us so much and the subconscious is here to help and wants to support you, we distort things, we change the story, we change the narrative. We want to write this positive, loving fairy tale, right? We want to write this magical story, and we don't want to actually see the struggle. We don't want to see the pain. We don't want to see that something may have happened that hurt. And so that's the repetitive cycle of the trauma, right? That's the reason why we're not able to get rid of it, because we haven't actually given ourselves permission to see the truth, to see the actuality of who you are and what brought you here. So I have a couple of different theories around sort of why things keep happening. If you have been struggling in your life and you found there's been a pattern that keeps coming back, right? If you find that, like for me, I wasn't sexually assaulted just once, I was sexually assaulted 4 times. And each time it was the same situation, only worse, right? It was like it kept coming back and kept coming back. And I never really understood why, because people say, well, you're attracting it, but I never understood sort of why it would keep coming back. And so then what I realized was that because of the fact that it had happened, there was a message there, right? There was something inside me that was created at a very young age that I wasn't allowing myself to feel. And so my belief system and what I've discovered is that if you have a trauma, if you have a pain, if you have a feeling and you don't address it, right? If you don't allow yourself to fully acknowledge and embrace the fact that it happened to you in the first place, which isn't your fault because your subconscious will, try and help you with this. What happens is the universe will actually send you more of it, not to hurt you or punish you, but to get you to actually open up to the truth of who you are, why you came here, and to get the healing. So it's kind of it's kind of a reversal of feeling like you've attracted something because you're doing something wrong. It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's not that your darkness and your shadow is here to hurt you, right? And it's not that it's evil. It's that it loves you so much that it will continually draw you in until you get the message, right? Until you get the lesson, until you get the transformation. And I say this because I've witnessed it with so many of my clients. And also with myself, a lot of the different experiences I've had. When I was 36, I lost my apartment, I lost my teacher, I lost my best friend, I had to move home. And this is just one example from my life. And I like to give examples from my life because it's my life and it's only, I only have my experiences, but I know that we all have experiences like this. So I was 36 years old and I moved back home, right? And when I moved back home, obviously I was upset about the fact that I moved back home. I was healing. I was very depressed. But the important thing is that I was living at home with my parents. And as I was living at home with my parents, I was witnessing my father. Right now, my father went through a lot of trauma himself. His father killed himself. His two brothers killed himself. Like he had his own stuff, right? But when I was a little girl, I used to write it off and I used to say, you know what? Dad is doing the daddy. I love my dad. He's a wonderful man, like all this stuff, right? Because I wanted to tell the story, the loving story of the girl with the dad who loves her. And, I was coping with my trauma. And so I moved back home, 36 years old. I'm seeing my father. And then all of a sudden I take the blinders off and I allow myself to actually come face to face with the truth of who I am and how I grew up. And all of a sudden I said, oh my God, I didn't realize this, but my father is a horrible, horrible bastard. He's an angry man. He yells all the time. He's verbally abusive. I've been verbally abused by my father my whole life, and I wanted to love him so much, right? I wanted to believe that he loved me. And the interesting thing is that by allowing myself to open up to this, I was able to unravel so much of my story because I started to see, okay, so not only did I grow up in a violent environment that I did not know, I wasn't aware of that, right? So that is a clue right there. Beyond that, I started to see that because I was only allowed to get love in certain ways from my father, that dictated the relationships I had. That's part of the sexual assault that I kept experiencing. It helped me unravel so much. So that's an example from my life of how I did this and what it looks like when you're actually doing this unpacking process. Now, the beauty of it and the importance of it is that when you give yourself permission to see those parts of yourself, right? Yes, of course, there's going to be integration. You're going to see shadow pieces. You're going to see the darkness. But I think that somebody said in the questions, like the darkness has a gift or a treasure. And I wanted to speak to that because I will tell you that the biggest discovery that I found is not only that trauma is you trying to free yourself from the patterns that you've been stuck in, right? It's trying to give you access to the information. Like Elizabeth said, it's information, right? So by me repeatedly getting hurt, eventually I woke up and said, wow, what is this about? Why am I constantly attracting people that hurt me, that abuse me? Why would I do that? Why would I want that? Then I could see, oh, okay, I see that, it goes back to this, it goes back to my childhood, it goes back to previous lifetimes, it goes, way, way, way back. But what it allowed me to see was that there was a piece of me that needed to learn how to love myself. And also there's something to be said for learning how to be with yourself in the dark, learning how to have the courage to go dig down deep into the dark and what you find. Because I'll tell you this time and time again, because it's what I've done for myself. It's what I do with my clients. It's what I teach in my programs. We're mining for diamonds. when you're digging through your trauma and when you're digging deep into your shame, when you're sitting in your shadow, when you're going back into the moments of darkness and that really dense, heavy emotion, it's not because you want to suffer more. It's not because you want to, hurt yourself more. It's not that it's scary. It doesn't have to be scary. What it is an opportunity for you to find the moment where it was created, right? The moment where you first felt that feeling of shame or betrayal or sadness or hopelessness, loneliness, whatever it is. It's so freeing and so liberating when you actually give yourself permission to go there. And it can be really scary because you know that you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in your bones. You're going to feel it in your cells. You're going to feel it in the entirety of who you are. I know this because I have done it myself. And of course, it's scary in the moment, but the reality is that if you do one thing and if you take one thing from what it is that I'm sharing with you today, it's that I want you to know that there is no shame in going into your shadow or go, like Elizabeth said, she's a mystic. She goes in the dark all the time. I that's what I do. I spend so much time in the shadows, in the darkness. That's my joy. That's like my favorite place to be with people because I know what's on the other side. I know that by helping you actually have the courage to open yourself up to who you are, what happened to you, what made you who you are, why you are the way you are, and empower you to change it, right? That's the doorway out. That's your ticket to freedom. That's your opportunity to actually take the power and write a new story. I'm a huge fan of the Vestal Virgins. The Vestal Virgins, if you don't know anything about them, they were very, very powerful priestesses in Rome. And one of the things that would happen is if anything ever went wrong, they would take these beautiful priestesses and they would bury them alive, right? They would take them and they would put them in caves and they would leave them there to die. And one of the reasons why I love them so much is that it's such an incredible archetype for what happens to every single one of us because we are powerful. We are embodiments of love. We have all this wisdom. You have it. I have it. Everybody has it. And then what happens is something happens to you that's a trauma that is essentially your cave, right? Your darkness. And you get scared and you get stuck and you can't get out and you spend the rest of your life living in that cave. And having the courage to go back in there and rescue yourself and get yourself out of the darkness, get yourself out of that cycle where you keep struggling or suffering or whatever it is. That's the difference between changing and not. So I wanted to share that with you and just give you an opportunity to really think for yourself what's possible. What is possible on the other side of that cave, of that darkness? And isn't it worth it to go in there and find yourself and rescue yourself? I promise you, I promise you that it is. And I hope that it inspires you to do this for yourself. I have a couple free gifts, some tools that can support you with this if you're interested in learning more about it. And you can use those to help support your journey through this process. I'm also offering anybody that watches this that wants to get on the phone with me a free call, and I can help you figure out where you're stuck, why you're stuck, why it keeps coming back. And we can talk about what it is that can support you in doing the same work that I've done for myself and that so many of my clients and students do, which is free yourself from the struggle, free yourself from the cave or the the patterns that you're stuck in, because you don't have to be ashamed of the fact that you're there. You just have to know enough to know that you deserve better.
Awesome, Katie. That was great. And if you could go ahead and put that in the chat for everyone, that would be great. And I saw earlier a question about, every experience is the next best thing for you. And I think that your talk really summed that up in a nice way. And it's
Yeah,
so true. All of our experience are such teachers.
it is. Yeah, they're teachers. And, I think that it is, if you take the concept of the fact that it's information, right? It's like, you need to have the experiences in order to gauge where you are and what's happening and why it's happening, right? If you don't, otherwise you have no compass. You have no sense of what's really happening. So if you use it as information, then it takes away the stigma of the pressure to have to be a certain way and just learn, which is great.
Right. Does anyone have any questions for Katie before we move on? And Elizabeth, I'm going to bring you back on so you could share yours too, if you don't mind. And then Katie, how can people reach you?
Oh wait, what did I just send you? No, okay, I did something. I was like, I put something in there. Ignore the spirit button best quotes, or if you like quotes, please check out the quotes about strong women. You'll see I put it in the comments. You can go to my website as well. It's Kozlowski.com, or you can click the links. There's a link. It's called Heal Your Goddess. You can download that mini crash course. It's a 20-minute audio. Or you can use the link. There's a link here that just says book a call, or if you go to my website, there's a button as well. And also enjoy the strong women quotes. I found those this morning. I guess they wanted to be a part of today.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Awesome. And your talk was great. Thank you so much. It's great to see your face.
Yeah.
Great to have you again.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then everyone, I'll be sharing all of those links in the follow-up email as well. And then Elizabeth, really quick, did you want to go ahead and share how people can reach you? Because we forgot to go there.
No problem. I popped in a happy new paradigm set of gifts for everyone too. And you can come talk with me on seerandscientist.com, or you can find tons of free videos and interviews I've done on YouTube. If you look up Elizabeth Wood, Seer and Scientist, SEER and Scientist. So I really would love to connect with you. Not a problem. Anytime. You just email me and come enjoy some videos and free information that'll help you. Can't wait to connect.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks for popping back on. And thanks, Katie. It was awesome to have you. And hopefully people will pop on and ask you some questions in the end.
Oh, sure.
Awesome. You can stick around. Okay. Next up, we have Jamie Wolf. Hi, Jamie. I'm going to go ahead and read your bio. Jamie Wolf lives on a beautiful island in the temperate rainforest. Jamie is an avid beekeeper and loves spending time in nature with her Icelandic sheepdogs. Jamie has mindfully and intentionally created a life that they absolutely love living and is committed to assisting others as they discover and create what they long for. 10,000 people per year attend Jamie's personal and professional development seminars. Jamie's ability to make complex, meaningful, and deeply personal material accessible and engaging is both widely recognized and unwaveringly lauded. Thanks for joining us, Jamie. I'm going to go ahead and give you the screen. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Liz. I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you to Elizabeth and Katie for your messages. I really appreciate the beauty that you brought there. And Katie, I love your your ending thing there. We're powerful. We're powerful human beings. I would say powerful beyond measure. So happy 2021 to people. I have been thinking about, as I always do, especially on the first, what is 2021 going to be for me? And not the question of what am I going to do? So many of us create a list of things that we're going to do. And today I'd really like to talk about and have you just take the next 30 minutes to think about who would I like to be in this new year? So what I've seen on social media and a lot in my work is a temptation for people to look away from what has happened in 2020. And I want to invite you to think about that. That is a mistake for us. And today I want to talk about something that may make some of you a little bit uncomfortable. So I've kind of given you the warning, but I really want to bring a challenge and some realness to what we do as a spiritual community in terms of what's happening right in front of us on the world stage. So how do we show up? Do we show up? How do we prepare to show up? So looking at trends of what's happening, I know that I've even found in myself, and I study the neurobiological responses to fear. I'm a trauma expert. I look at all this stuff all the time. And even for myself, I find myself saying, oh God, I'm so glad 2020 is over. And I'm so glad that Joe Biden is in the office and Kamala Harris. It's all going to be okay. Right. And what I want to say is that for me, I recognize that this is painting pink paint on what has been a very ugly year for us in the United States of America and around the world. We've come face to face with racism and bigotry, police violence. And for those of you who don't know me, my bread and butter audience, while I do have a private practice and work with private citizens, is law enforcement. So I'm seen as an expert in the field and an expert in use of force. I understand what's happening. When I see the videos, I'm not traumatized by those videos because I'm very familiar with them. I'm looking at, why would someone do this thing? Why we don't wake up in the morning and say, I want to take another life and be on national news and ruin my life. So what is the failure to connect here? And in the spiritual community, what I see us saying is, that's not me. That's law enforcement. I don't share those ideas. And so what I want to challenge us to do today is to not look away, number one, and to two, really take up the arms in terms of, how am I going to show up when faced with these things? And as Elizabeth talked about, and Katie talked about, and Liz also talked about, how am I going to show up as an individual human being? So as Elizabeth talked about, without resolving my own trauma, Katie, the same theme. Right. So I have to get in there and do what they called the darkness or the dark work or the trauma work if I want to be a human who can show up in an instant to actually be an advocate or an ally for someone who is suffering right in front of me. So I was speaking to my friend yesterday, the great Diane Booth Gilliam. She's an amazing astrologer and my dear friend. And Diane was saying to me, well, Jamie, that's all great, but I don't know what to do. So at the end of this, I'm actually going to give you 3 steps that you could actually, action steps that you can take. It's not enough for us to listen. It's what is demanded in this day and age is that we as a spiritual community actually step up and get uncomfortable in the interest of growth, that we're willing to say the hard things. And so you may be thinking, well, oh my gosh, Jamie, how does that relate to me in terms of my spirituality? Well, we have some models. I'm going to actually use the model today in talking about the Buddha. Buddha and also Jesus, Muhammad, and I've been revisiting, you'll hear Carolyn Mace mixed in this conversation, gone back and I'm revisiting Carolyn Mace's great works around archetypes, because these are important times for us to be reminded. Someone said to me yesterday, isn't she one of the original kind of old gurus? Yes, and she's still very relevant today. How are we going to show up? And I think I've listened to her book about 3 times in the last 3 days. I just love her so much. So the question I want to ask you is, who will I be in 2021? Who will you be in 2021? Not what will you do, not weight will you lose. Of course, I have all those same goals, right? I want to have my body aligned with my spirit and my mind, so I'm taking care of all aspects of myself. But I also want to show up as a rock star human being. And what does that mean? It means that as a community of people who value, and I'm just going to call spirituality as an umbrella term for people who are walking towards enlightenment, or people who are walking towards Christ consciousness, however you say that thing, whatever that thing is, that we oftentimes talk amongst ourselves and we surround ourselves and create this bubble of what I call la la land. And when we get into the real world and we're sitting at the dinner table with our Uncle Bobby, I had an Uncle Bobby who's a perfect example of this, and he says something horrible, I don't know how to respond because I actually have not thought about this, right? Viktor Frankl talks about the moment between my reaction, am I going to react or respond in this moment? And how do I show up in that way? And so we think that somehow we will magically just come forward with the most perfect thing to say at the dinner table, and we won't. And I did this the other day, and I studied this. I teach this. It's a lifelong work. And I want to invite you today to think about, am I really willing to do the hard work that it takes to be an exceptional human being? And a lot of us aren't. I know because I've done this. I hide on my little island of Vashon with my people who think and look like me, and they're all la, and me in a tie is normal here. So I don't have to think about oppressed people who look and act like me in the queer community who are out there, because I'm accepted here. Isn't it lovely? And this is a failure on my part. So the other day I was talking to one of my beloveds, a member of my family, actually my organic family. And they said something, and I need to clean this up with them, but they said something that was painful to me. And I heard myself, instead of going into empathy. And here's the thing, because this person's closer to me, right? It's not in my classroom. And this is where we fail. It's a person who's up close and personal to me. They're in my intimate circle. And I failed to offer empathy in that moment. And I went right to defending that person's parent and shut the conversation down because I felt uncomfortable. Isn't it interesting, right? And so why do we do this? Before you might think, oh, Jamie, you're judging yourself too harshly. No, really, I'm not. I'm holding myself accountable. But the biggest piece here is that I'm also have a ton of empathy for myself. It was uncomfortable because it was also uncomfortable for me, because those people were also my biological family. So the closer we get to these things, the further away we want to go. And I'm not going to go into trauma because I think Elizabeth and Katie, I'm sure other people will also talk about the trauma aspects of this. But in the moment, I recognized, I was self-aware enough to recognize I was triggered in the conversation. I was not aware of what had happened here. I don't know the story. There were multiple people on this Zoom call, and I didn't know how to handle it. So what do? If you fail, you go back and say, I'm sorry, which I plan to do. Right? When I'm not triggered anymore, and have a cleanup conversation with this beautiful human being. So 2021, who do I want to be? You know, we want to, and this is primal. So give yourself a break. You can go back and say, yeah, Jamie just gave me a get out of jail free card. I'm gonna right now. It's primal. I want to look away. It's painful to think about the things that we're seeing. But the passing of a day into a new year does not mean that it's fixed. Biden coming into power does not mean that this is fixed. I can celebrate that, but we still have a lot of work to do. I saw our new VP-elect Harris on television the other day celebrating Kwanzaa, and my heart was filled with hope. She was openly talking about Kwanzaa, an African-American holiday in the United States of America, our new vice president. Beautiful progress, lovely inclusion, and it's not enough. So what do? What is our failure as a spiritual community? Marianne Williamson talks a lot about this. She's one of my primary teachers. I love her. And she talks a lot about our cowardice and our failure to show up in tough moments, our failure to say the hard things, to confront things that are painful because we haven't thought about it in advance. And so thinking about those things today. But the first step with this is that I really, instead of looking away, I want to know and understand what is duality. So what is duality? Duality is that I'm looking outside at my beautiful red barn and there are people starving in the world. I went to my beautiful greenhouse this morning and picked fresh vegetables for my delicious morning soup that I love to have. And people can't even imagine the concept of going out and having the best organic dirt in the best little place, in the best environment. I can just call someone like Liz and hang out with her if I wanted to. Thinking about these pieces of what is our privilege, and people think about that and they shy away from that term. And I want to invite you to start thinking about that term. In fact, writing down and starting to notice, this is metacognition. I'm a meta coach. I really value metacognition. If you don't know what that is, it's my ability to see my thoughts. Can I see my thoughts? And then can I decide in that moment what I want to do? We're the only creatures that have this ability. No one else does, just us. So I can be in that point of decision about how do I want to respond or react in this moment. Now, in the spiritual community, we do another thing. I'm making some broad brush strokes, and I realize that here. So bear with me. But we also do this thing that we say we always have to respond in love. Well, what does love look like? Love actually means saying no. Love actually means having boundaries. Love actually means respecting myself enough to stand up and not tolerate a crappy comment from someone about someone else. Love means I'm willing to get uncomfortable when I'm with someone who is marginalized potentially. And when I say marginalized, I'm not just talking about Indigenous, Black people, people of color, brown people, LGBTQIAS2. If you don't know what all those are, I'm going to invite you later to learn a little bit about people outside of myself, but it's that I will step in and be an ally for you in that moment and speak to the discomfort. That's how we heal our country. What do? We speak to the discomfort in the moment. But if I've never thought about this, and if I'm still in my trauma, as Katie and Elizabeth so aptly talked about, if I'm still swimming in my trauma, then I'm going to be triggered in the moment, and then I'm going to be a failure. I can't show up. So what do I have to do? I have to look at the duality in advance. The duality that there's nothing wrong. And I'm just going to say it, privilege, 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 white privilege, white privilege, white privilege, right? When we think about this and people turn away from that, what does that mean? It doesn't mean I'm bad because I'm standing here in a nice suit. It doesn't mean I'm bad because I live on a beautiful island. It means that I have certain access to resources and things that other people don't. And that's okay. The failure is when I think that they can pick themselves up by their bootstraps, one of my most hated statements, when I was born with bootstraps and they never had a pair. So they never had that. They didn't have the opportunity. So it's not saying why are we making me wrong, right? And as, oh gosh, I'm going to forget. I think it was Elizabeth talking about, the power over power under paradigm. That's that. It's nonsense. So how are we going to heal ourselves? By getting rid of power over power under, by thinking that I'm wrong because I have, and thinking that you're different because you have not, by stepping into seeing you instead of the perpetual other as a part of all that I am. And if you are a part of all that I am, then I know you. I have empathy for you and I can have compassion for you. Now, what does this mean? I have never seen Elizabeth, Katie, and Lacey before in my life. But here's what I know about all three of them. I know a lot about Liz, so we're going to ignore her. But those three, I don't know anything about them other than I looked at their bios and I checked them out and I saw them on Facebook and I did a little bit of, I stalked them a little bit to see who they were. That's all I know. But what I don't know, other than the stories that they're sharing today, is their story and who they are and what matters to them. What are their life contracts? What are the contracts that they've written? What are the contracts that they've actually overcome? What are the cords that they have with other people, with events? What are the ideas that they hold? I can't know that. So what do I know? Well, as an MVC practitioner, if you don't know what that is, I invite you. It's a beautiful time to study the work of Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication. I know this, that Elizabeth, Katie, and Lacey all share a lot in common with me. The only person on this panel who identifies as they, them, and is wearing a tie. Look at the differences between us. If we just look at just the differences. But if I were to ask each one of them these questions, have you ever been in love? They'd all say yes. And so have I. I am right now. It's great. I recommend it. Have you ever had your heart broken? They would answer yes. Have you ever lost someone you've loved? Have you ever had a terrible day? Have you ever had one of those days that just went so well? Have you ever realized that you made a mistake and gone to someone and created this beautiful, impeccable bond? Have you ever made a mistake that you couldn't undo with someone? They'd say yes, 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 of course. Right. So what do we need to do in the spiritual community? We need to become, and I challenge you to think about, what is this? What are you saying, Jamie? To become masters of empathy. When I think of them, no matter how different they are than me, it doesn't matter because we have all felt all of the same feelings. You may not know Kaiser Permanente in other places you are, but Kaiser has a model now. It's their big special model that they've spent millions of dollars on talking about with their therapists. So if you have a Kaiser therapist now, you're going to see this and say, I heard of that. I heard of that. What is it? That in a moment of crisis, there's three simple things to do. Number one, offer more empathy than I think is necessary. Well, isn't that easy? No. I've studied this for 5 years and I couldn't show up the other day with my beloved person in my life. It's not easy. And this is why people don't do it. right? This is why we don't want to do the work. I'm actually going to give you some books and references that you can go and look at. One of my favorites, if you just want to study what is empathy. Well, first of all, Dr. Brene Brown, anything Brene Brown. Of course, I've taken all her courses. I love her. But also looking at, there's another book I'll recommend, and I'll type it all in for you, but The Language of Emotions, which is a deep dive study with each emotion. What is it telling us? What are the opportunities for me? And what does this require? A commitment to work, right? Every day I wake up and I have to do some work on myself to expand my horizons and look at that piece. So duality is really looking at what things are different from how I've experienced. So let's talk about Buddha Siddhartha. He's born into this beautiful home, and his father says, you know what, and if I mess this up for the Buddhists out there, I apologize. This is just a layperson understanding. But I'm going to protect you. I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to give you everything here. I don't want you to feel the pain of the world. So son, stay in my home. I'll give you everything. And Buddha had it hooked up. Siddhartha then had it all hooked up. He had everything he needed. But he started thinking about these things like, what is duality? Are there people out there? Could there be a darkness, as my peers have said here? Could there be another part of the world? And he walked away from his father's house and basically went and sat under a tree until he became enlightened. That's the story, right? In 3 words or less. And what is enlightenment? Well, if you look at the sacred scriptures, what Buddha did was he surrendered. Now, I love this word because this is a tricky word, and I think it's one of the words that's most often misused in our community, right? When we think about surrendering, what does that mean? If you Google it, it says kind of like to give in or give over power to, and I just want to call bullshit on that. Surrender is instead the acceptance of what is true in my environment and the willingness to look at it. Now, let's talk about another person in history. So we know the story of Buddha. He went out, he saw people, he sat amongst people. He actually learned who they were. I want to challenge you to do that in this year. 2021 for me is a year of learning about people who are different than me and people who are also like me, because I'm part of the queer community. I've recently discovered that I don't know a lot about my community, and I have a lot more to learn about the diversity of my own community and who all these people are, right? Coming out from everywhere. I can't keep up, right? It's a moving target, makes people uncomfortable. I can't ace it. And this isn't about acing it. It's about, am I willing to understand? What am I willing to do? So my goal is to do 2 things a day. I wrote to a dear friend today who's African-American. I sent her a statement that was in a queer book that I read about feeling different and perpetually the other, and asked her, would you be willing to tell me how you read this so that I can understand better you? That was one thing for today. I also did my spiritual practice, which is I signed up for 365 days with Marianne Williamson. $50, can't beat that. And the study of A Course in Miracles. And then the third thing that I did is what I've already been doing for a year is I am subscribed to the Anti-Racism Daily. Now, why would I do that? Anti-racism, Jamie, what's that? Well, go Google it, because this is a pretty important term. It's my acknowledging that I can't be a white person raised in America without privilege as a white person. It can't happen. I'm from the Deep South, 8 generations. Of course, I have racist ideology. That is the surrender. Are you following me? The surrender to say, I am imperfect. Of course I am. I can't know everything. And what is in my language and my being that I may not understand? How might I be the power over the oppressor, becoming part of that system that Elizabeth talked about unconsciously? And what I'm inviting you to say today is that in the spiritual community, we're supposed to be walking towards enlightenment, to be waking up, right? And thinking about these pieces of who am I and who do I want to be? So I'll talk to you about some ideas I have for you later. As my girlfriend said yesterday, the journey is to fill your belly with a love of the unknown. That is the surrender. She's so smart. I love her. Right? Thinking about, like, if I actually think about what is a love of the unknown instead of pushing it away, and all of my primal instincts, everything about your neuroscience will tell you that, of course, you push it away. You push away the unknown because it's uncomfortable. And great people get uncomfortable in the willing of, in the interest of growth. That's the difference. So Buddha, he surrendered. Now, some of us in the spiritual community think about surrender as spiritual bypass. And we hear people say things like, last year was a bad year, but this year's going to be better. Or I see things where someone will say, and be careful, listen to me carefully here. They'll say, I'm really suffering. My parent has COVID. And the person will say, I'll pray for you. Well, prayer is good. That's good. But are we failing to offer empathy? Are we failing to show up in real ways? And do we even know how to say, I'm so sorry that this is happening in your family. How can I show up for you and support you? Right? We use platitudes and easy little statements to get ourselves out. And we see this because most of the spiritual sites that I belong to right now are talking about manifesting, which is great, and creating new experiences. What I'm not seeing there is addressing the deep pain that our country is in, that people of color are facing, that marginalized people are facing. So are we going to use our privilege? So I'm going to talk about a different person. We've talked about Buddha for a moment, who became enlightened. But I'd like to talk to you about this other character named Jesus for a moment. Now, those of you who know me know that I am a heathen, but I was raised in the fundamentalist church. It's part of the best parts of me. It's also part of my trauma. But here's one of the best parts. Jesus did this crazy thing. And you may remember this story if you went to Bible school. He went into the temple and they were selling things in the temple. And Jesus found this to be a distortion. And if we were in an interactive class, I could ask you this, and I know that I would get a bunch of answers. You would all know what happened. Jesus actually went in and he threw the tables all over the place. And we say in the spiritual community, oh my goodness, well, that's kind of a violent response. And I want to say to you, no, it's not. It's an appropriate response. And how important was this in the Christian tradition? When we think about the Christian tradition, it's mentioned in Matthew 21. It's mentioned in Mark 11. It's mentioned in Luke 19 and John 2. It's one of the only stories that is told consistently in all of the Gospels. That's how important this moment was. Jesus disrupted the power over. And in the scripture actually said, and I'm paraphrasing, you are polluting my Father's house. And how does that relate to today? I've addressed racism, homophobia. We've talked about the LGBT community just a tiny bit, just this little piece of marginalized populations, people that I call the perpetual other. Let's talk a moment about Mother Earth. We're in a point in time right now where our mother, scientists are telling us, if we don't turn things around, we can never, ever go back. We've never been here before. We've been at, it can get 10% worse, and then we should worry about it. And then it was 5% worse, and then 2% worse. And that little gauge, and all the scientists are now screaming at us, if we don't take direct action right now, what in the world are we going to do? How are we going to turn this around? And the spiritual community, how are we responding to that? What are we doing? Not what are we talking about in our little circles at our church. It's not about what we do at our synagogue. It's when I'm in the parking lot driving away. What kind of human am I being? How am I acting in this way? What commitments am I making to actually revitalize Mother Earth and actually protect her? So one of my commitments this year is that I have a Keurig. I love it so much. And I've just been bothered by how much I'm wasting, even though with this particular machine, I can send the things in, they say they recycle it. I'm not dumb. I can't even imagine the gas effect of just creating all those little pods and what happens. So I bought myself, a nice coffee maker press, and I had my first coffee press this morning. We think about, I have to go out and pick up trash and do all these things, do that too. But I want to tell you, if you just did 3 things in your home, if you looked in your bathroom, I did this last year and it was shocking. Go look in your bathroom and look for the products that have a little bunny rabbit on it, because that's telling you that animals weren't harmed here. And you say you love animals. What products are you using? Right. So think about that. I ended up, oh my goodness, I was in shock at how was I mindlessly contributing to harming animals when I say that I love them. So to me, in the spiritual community, it's incumbent upon us that we don't get to be mindless anymore. That this year has shown us, and sadly beat us over the head with, things have to change. So how do we change things? All right, what is it that we do? We change ourselves. Katie and Elizabeth talked about that. That's where we start. We surrender to what is true. And as Lisa said, we fill our bellies with the love of the unknown. We surrender to, I don't know. And I don't need to know everything. And I choose to be a lifelong learner and to make mistakes and get uncomfortable. Now, in law enforcement, we do this very specific thing. If we're going to go into a house, we talk about, and I come from the field of probation. So if we're going to go into a house, and let's say Lacey's on probation, let's put her on probation for a minute. It would be for some misdemeanor crime, I'm sure. It's something very negligible. But we're going to go in her house. I'm going to ask my partner some questions. I'm going to say, have you met Lacey? Yes. Have you been in her house before? Yes. Are there animals in the house? Yes. Right. This is called risk management, right? Risk management 101. Is there anyone else on probation in the house? Is there anyone dangerous? If I make Lacey heterosexual, sorry, Lacey, if you're not, but is her boyfriend there? Is he on probation? Like, we ask these questions. Are there guns in the house? What might happen? Now, this is important because what we don't do is walk in not having thought about any of this and not having made a plan. If I walk into her house and there's a gun on the table, I will react in X way. You do this, I'll do that. That's how we'll handle it. Risk management. But we don't do this in our personal lives. We don't think about, and I didn't think about the other day on this phone call that really mattered to me. What if this person who I haven't talked to in a long time says something about her trauma that I didn't know? How will I respond? Will I choose to show up as an empathetic human? Am I ready to do that? Am I ready to hear her story? What will I say, right? Risk management in our relationships. What if I'm talking to someone and they say something like, these are the things I think about. You know, I'm just so sick of this Black Lives Matter thing. I'm over it. Thank God it's 2021. How will I respond? What will I say? How will I show up? And if you think you will magically pull it out of the air in that moment, you won't, right? These are things that require a deep commitment to what am I willing to say? How uncomfortable am I willing to get? Who will it be? I was talking to a law enforcement professional the other day who made the statement that he's afraid to touch any Black person right now. I was ready for the conversation, right? That's an extreme response to a situation where we could really show up. Is there another way that you could look at this? What parts of the law enforcement environment have gone very astray? Are you able to see in the situations where people have been murdered, George Floyd, right in front of us for 8 minutes? Well, that's a one-off. No, it's not a one-off, right? Am I willing to have the hard conversation and talk about that piece? Right? When I see someone, a family member, and I go over to their house and I see them just throwing things away and not recycling, do I care enough about the mother to say, I'm thinking I should buy you a recycle bin for something like for the new year, right? Let's hook that up so that you can actually recycle. Would you be willing to do that? And here's the benefits of that piece. But instead of facing and really surrendering to the truth that's in front of us, that it is time for us to be ready for, willing and able to have the challenging conversations with people that are not in alignment with our values as a spiritual community, that are not in alignment with protecting the mother, that are not in alignment with supporting Black and Brown Indigenous peoples, women, children, poor people. What are we going to do with that piece, and who am I going to be? What I'd like to leave you with are a few suggestions. If we are going to speak to hatred, bigotry, racism, biphobia, transphobia, sexism, if we really want to disseminate and dismantle these paradigms of what we call power over, power under, then it is really important that we do three things. Number one, learning about the perpetual other. And who is that in our country? You can also take a worldview, but I want to actually invite you to think about who is that in my community? Who is that I might meet on the street and then going outward from there? Who is the perpetual other? You may not know that right now in the United States of America, the most murdered people, the most harmed, the most unemployed, the most homeless, the most hungry, the most in the criminal justice system per capita is one group of people, and that is trans women of color. If you don't know about that group of people, now is the time, and I invite you, just go YouTube that and look at what are the stats. Do I have a friend who I can actually learn from and engage with this? Can I learn about the perpetual other? All of those stats belong to one group of people. This is really something. And if you don't know about that group of people, trans women of color actually created Black Lives Matter. I don't know if folks knew that or not, but I love that and are really wanting to be seen there. Number 2, getting willing to get uncomfortable in the interest of growth. Throw the table on the ground. Now, you can study nonviolent communication, but when you throw the table, you can say, Jamie said this was being like Jesus, and for the gospel said it too, right? Throw the table in the air. I'm not willing to stand by any longer and say that this behavior is okay in my family. I'm not willing to let you speak like that about another human being. I'm not willing to see you trashing literally Mother Earth when we live in the same house. How can we recycle, reuse? What can we do there? So thinking about this piece, I want to also recommend a third piece is becoming an empathy master, right? Am I offering more empathy than I think is necessary? Again, the work of Brene Brown, she's all over YouTube. Just Google her, so easy. The work of Daniel Goleman in emotional intelligence. You feel free to write me privately if you are interested in finding out what more of these resources are, but all of them are on my website. So that's an easy one. Waiting in the silence. So we have a tendency to want to fix things and go in there and fix it. And let's learn to wait in the silence as people tell us their beautiful stories. And then offering choices. I had a beautiful experience, and I just want to end with this. I think this person's actually in the class. I saw their name, and I just want to give them a shout out. I'm not going to name them, but I went to a dentist on the island, and the dentist asked me, gave me a form and asked me, what gender are you? And the two options, they asked me, what sex are you, male or female? So I went up to the receptionist and I said, are you asking my gender? Or are you asking my sex? Now, if you don't know the difference and why I'm making this comparison, here's some work for you. And the person said, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's a form. I want you to think about empathetically for a moment. You may not know me, but just look at me. How that felt as a person who's about to give you hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It was very upsetting to me. And so I went to the owner of the business and said, I'd like to suggest to you that you change up your forms. In fact, I do this stuff all the time. I'm really good at it. I could fix your forms in 20 minutes or less if you just give them to me. Would you be willing? He said, I'll get back to you. And he never did. Another message. What's the message? That a marginalized group doesn't matter, right? Super clear. Conversely, I go to a massage therapist on the island. She hands me the entrance forms. I love her, and I think you're in this class. She says on her form, what is your gender and how do you identify? And it has like 22 options. I'd never even heard of some of them. I took a picture of it and went home and looked some of that up, right? Who are you? How do you want me to refer to you? What are your pronouns? What's like all of these pieces I felt so seen and cared about. And so, here I am at the end of my time with you today, but I want to invite you to think about the principles that I've talked about. We can't sleepwalk through this time in history. It's not okay. And what I really want to invite you to do is think about going forward. How am I going to show up? Who am I going to be? And that you won't rise to the occasion. You'll rise to the level of your training. We have to be willing to practice for this stuff in advance and know how to speak truth to justice, know how to speak to the paradigm of power over so that we can shift it in 2021. Thanks so much, Liz, for this opportunity. I really appreciate you.
Woo! Jamie, that was awesome. Thank you so much. So much power behind your words. I love everything you shared. And thank you for the beautiful graphic.
Yeah, look at you. I just love that you're such a beautiful human and you give us all this. You bring so many people together that I wouldn't know about. And so I'm really grateful to you, Liz. I see you and I appreciate you. You're a beautiful human.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate that. It is my life's work and I love it so much. It's bringing me so much joy and pleasure. Thank you so much for recognizing that. Yep. Does anybody have any questions for Jamie before we move on?
Can you see the screen I shared there with my contact stuff?
Yeah, it's up in the right corner.
Great. I also have a Facebook
If you
page
could
that some.
stop sharing so I could see everybody else, that would be
Okay,
great.
I will. Let me do that.
Awesome. Does
Boom.
anybody have any questions? Some great comments in the chat. Keep on sharing in the chat, everybody.
See some friends there. Hello to you. And yes, also I have a Facebook page. I mean, not a Facebook page. I have a YouTube page, and it has lots of recordings, actually recordings with Liz. There's some law enforcement stuff there that you'll probably find boring unless you're law enforcement, but I invite you to go and look at the interviews because we talk in depth about many of these topics. So great.
All right. And one comment says, thank you, Jamie, seeing and appreciating all you're bringing through. So thank you for that in the Q&A. I appreciate that. All right. And I do have one quick note before we move on. Amy just messaged me and she has just had a sudden onset stomach illness and won't be able to join us today. She's so disappointed. Let's send Amy some love and healing vibes for sure. And I'll be sending you links. She provided me with a link to her New Year visioning and a free download of her book. So that's exciting. I'll make sure I get those to you in the follow-up email. But stay with us because we still have Lacey Gurr and Eva Papp joining us to round out the day. So I'm going to move on. Thank you, Jamie. Next up, we have Lacey Gurr. Whoops. Hi, Lacey. So glad to have you. I'm going to read your bio really quick.
Okay, go for it.
Lacey Gurr is a transformational coach, certified holistic health coach, certified yoga instructor, and NLP practitioner. She guides people through a signature process that she has created over the past 8 years by combining her knowledge and experience of the healing powers of food, NLP, timeline therapy, and energy movement. She believes that everyone is already whole and complete and has all the answers they need within them. And she is the coach to help guide them to their own innate truth and wisdom. Lacey, welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead and give you the floor now.
All right. So I just want to show up as a vulnerable human and say that my heart is fluttering. I feel so much energy and excitement, and I feel honored to be on this panel with such amazing, powerful humans. Every one of you, oh my gosh, just everything that you've been saying, I'm like, yes, 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 you're my soul human. I love it. And the fact that Liz brought us all together, like you were saying, Jamie, too, is just, I mean, it's because of consciousness. It's because we are all one. So of course, and here we are going into 2021 to awaken and to know thy truth, right? Here we are shedding all of the old, all of the ego. And I love how the topic, how Elizabeth pretty much started the train going with the shadow and really understanding that to find truth is to go into it, right? And so I want to acknowledge every single one of you that is on live today, here, taking your time out of your day on a Saturday for sitting in on this. Thank you. And you are a powerful human. And I want to acknowledge you for doing the work, because you showing up is proving that you're willing to understand yourself and learn who you are even more. And if you're just starting your journey, it's a wild, amazing ride, and you're in for a treat. Because this path of healing is not for the faint of heart. And it takes tremendous commitment. And I believe that that's where our world and our consciousness is going. And so jump on the train, we're going. Okay. I love acknowledging people too. Also, Jamie, I want to thank you so much for speaking up about the different, going into the hospital and having gender profile. Like, I'm still learning, and I made a mistake just now typing in the chat to a friend of mine who, I've been healing this within myself, and they've been helping me. So we're all doing our work. And as long as we're all willing to show up and admit, like, I am not perfect, I'm doing the best I can. And that feels very vulnerable, right? That feels very vulnerable. But every time we do that ourselves, we're creating a ripple effect outward. So thank you. And to everybody who's on here and watching the recording, I also want to plant this little seed within you, is that it's not about perfection. It's not about being right or wrong in whatever you're doing in your life. The fact is that every action that you take, every word that you speak, every thought that you think is a vibration, and it is rippling out. So your one thought, your one word, your one behavior could shift. If just 1 degree shift could put you and your vibration in an entirely different trajectory of where you're going. And that helps the collective as well. So I'm also kind of just channeling, just like letting what's coming through come through. So my background, yes, I started with healing pre-cervical cancer in my body at the age of 24 years old, being very scared, having no support from my family, and just kind of having to figure it out. And I really believe that was the pivotal moment of my awakening and of me really wanting to understand human consciousness and humans. And it kind of proceeded from there. So after I healed that simply by changing my diet, going fully plant-based, and really rooting in my belief, and this is the secret and the magic that I look back on now that I didn't realize back then, but my unwavering belief that those doctors are lying to me. I don't have cancer, right? I kept telling myself that. I kept saying, I'm fine, like I'm healthy, I'm whole. And then going back 3 months later, getting a test done and having my test results being completely clear and normal was just mind-blowing to me. And I knew that I had to share this message. So for me, my life purpose, what I know I'm here to do, is to learn, experience, and teach. And there's just so much to talk about. Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay, so I did write down a couple bullet points so I'd stay on track. So I really want to focus on the topic that's just kind of organically come up, and that is our shadow and our unconscious beliefs. So if we are wanting to make any sort of change in our life, we have to get down to our unconscious mind, right? Down to our unconscious belief system, because that is actually what's running 95% of our daily life, of our daily habits, of the way we speak. And our unconscious mind was programmed from ages 0 to 7, maybe 10 if we're going to push back a little bit. But we have such rooted, and this is what we're seeing right now. This is what we saw in 2020, was all of this shadow being brought up, all of the suppressed programming that everybody has been operating on unconsciously. But it's bringing up to the forefront now, and now really being questioned and being tested. So for me, I love working with the unconscious mind. I love working with the shadow too. Like Elizabeth said, I love going into the darkness. It's where the gold is. It's where we get to make a change. It's where we get to gain our power back. Because if we're operating on an unconscious programming, and we could go into the scientific side of this as well with neuroplasticity and the neural networking that is running our brain, right? Our hard wiring in our brain. There's grooves and there's networks that are being clustered together, and that creates all of the thoughts and the programming that we continually run on. So what I've found with my clients and with myself, when it comes to change, when we're truly desiring a change that seems out of our spectrum or out of our range. So like if somebody wanted to become a millionaire, could they just sit there all day long thinking the thoughts, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire. I'm going to go buy a Porsche just because they say if I buy the car, I'll feel like a millionaire and I'll get $1 million, right? It's not going to happen. Only not because they can't do that. We all have the capacity, the capability, the resources, everything that we need to receive anything that we desire. There's a block that happens, and our unconscious mind has a job to do. And your unconscious mind's one of its number one jobs is to keep you safe and is to make sure you are right. So if there is an unconscious belief within you that says, so let's say that you grew up in a family, and I'm going to go with money right now, because I believe that this is the next frequency that we all need to get very comfortable with, right? So this is where I'm tapping into the energy of money. So money is a resource. Money is an energy. Money is a frequency. We've given our power away to money. And with that power, we see tremendous fear, shame, guilt, right? All of these shadows that are coming up around money are triggering us. And why do we have such big triggers around money? Well, it goes down to the unconscious mind and our unconscious belief system of what we believe we're deserving and worthy of having. So it's my job as a coach to support my clients to see and find and understand not what kind of job to get or how many hours to work or who's going to pay them the most. It's my job to support you, to support whomever, to understand, where do you believe you're not worthy? Where do you have limiting beliefs that say having money is bad? And where is your unconscious mind trying to protect you from not having a certain amount of money? And in our interview with Liz, I talked about secondary gain. So a lot of the resistance and blocks that come up around money is this goes into the system, right? This goes into the system that we were raised on. This is deep rooted stuff. So this topic, along with what all my other amazing humans on here have talked about, money is also a frequency that we need to get really comfortable with. And in order to do that, we need to dive into the shadow and become really familiar and understand where your fears are, where your shadows are, where your triggers and your resistance are with money. So if I were to ask everybody to type in the chat, if you want to right now, please go ahead. Let's just talk about money right now. Like, what are your fears or your beliefs around money? What did your family say about money? Right? What is your perspective around money and your desires of having everything that you want. Right? Easy come, easy go. Yep. Money is my lover. That's a good one because that comes from Hara. So keep them coming. I want to play with this. So if we take all of the information that you've just heard these lovely speakers talk about, could we agree that everything is frequency? And if everything is frequency, if we can tap into that frequency, then it is readily available to us, right? That's what quantum science, quantum field, there's unlimited possibilities circulating around us all the time right now. The reason why we're not tapping into those is because rich people are evil, rich people are selfish. But you just told me you want to have a 6-figure business, right? You just told me that you want to make $500,000 this year. But how is that going to be possible if you have the frequency within you that says rich people are evil and selfish? It's not going to align, right? You're not going to be in the frequency. And this is beautiful. This is awareness, because once we know that money is dirty, right? Money is dirty, right? What did our parents say growing up? Oh, don't pick that up. Don't touch that. It's money, dirty. Ew, ew, right? All of these deep-rooted programs that are in your beautiful little computer of a brain are operating right now. And other people put those in there. You didn't even have an option. You cute little baby, adorable thing. You grew up in this family and household that said, we can't spend more than we have. We can't have that. You can't have that, right? So then we grow up and that's our belief. So this is where I'm showing up. This is what I'm teaching. This is where I'm supporting my clients with timeline therapy, which is a beautiful process of going into, okay, before I go into timeline therapy, I want to talk about the Gestalt theory, right? So Gestalt theory, and then having energy stuck in our body. So if anybody's read the book, Body Keeps the Score, that's absolutely amazing, right? Somatic energy gets trapped and locked in our body. Well, with the Gestalt theory is a theory where negative emotions attach to an experience. So just like Jamie said, money's dirty, or who said this? Yeah, Jamie did too. Rich people are evil and selfish. So before you're when you're pre-verbal, you can't even speak words. You can't even comprehend words. You really don't understand words. You're still absorbing energy. So you could have even absorbed something in the womb while your mother was stressing the bleep out about money. Oh my God, right? Like she's transferring that down into you. You're taking that in, taking that on. That is now lodged in your body, somatically in your body. And then as you're birthed, you have all these experiences and these negative emotions of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. These are the top 5 negative emotions. These lock on to experiences in our life, and they actually create like a pearl necklace, and they attach to each other. So now we'll go into timeline therapy. So I do this amazing process where I guide my clients into a really gentle hypnosis and allow their unconscious mind to guide them, giving them the power back, right? Giving them their own experience. Because like Jamie said, I have no idea what you're seeing through those eyes, those lenses, what your experience is. You do. You know that. And your unconscious mind knows everything that's deep down within you, even when you were in utero, even from past lives. So the unconscious mind is more than it's consciousness, right? It is consciousness, and it's the consciousness that we actually don't know is there. So you don't know what you don't know. So going into timeline therapy, you get to see what you don't know, and you get to bring the positive learnings up that you could have learned in an experience, but because you didn't have the awareness that you have now, you can put it back there. So we can actually collapse these timelines. We can actually release these negative emotions. And in doing so, I think it was Elizabeth, she was saying, oh yeah, because so when you go in, and I love this so much, you go in, you face the shadow, you face the unconscious belief. Now you have the awareness, and you get to choose. You get to be the responsible human adult that you are now, and say, do I really choose to believe that money is evil? Money is there just to be spent and soon, like, get it away. Or do I choose to believe different thoughts? Because every experience is a projection of what you believe to be true. So you might want to try to argue with me, but whether you believe it is or it isn't, you're right. So people can show up and argue a point because that's their truth. And they're going to continue seeing that truth. And all it takes is a shift of your beliefs in order to make that change. So the power comes from finding the unconscious beliefs, going into the shadows to have awareness, and then set yourself free. It's basically what I like from my personal experience too, like doing the shadow work. Yeah, it's uncomfortable because it's in our body and we're human beings and we have this flesh and bone and we have sensations. That's why we chose to be here. And it's the meaning and the power you give to it. So we get to take our power back. We get to go in and find those unconscious beliefs, because the reality is we don't know what we don't know. But you can use the beauty of triggers to say, wow, this trigger is here for me to show me what my unconscious mind is holding on to down here and what I'm not aware of. So every time a trigger comes up, I keep a trigger journal on my phone. I have notes. I have an iPhone. Every time a trigger comes up, and a trigger could look like anything. It could be, I got angry at my cat the other day because I was on my cell phone trying to post a reel on Instagram, and I got angry and I was like, what is this here for me? Like, why am I getting angry at a cat? And what I unearthed was a limiting belief of, this is my job, this is my work, I'm doing work, you're taking away from my work, like fear, frustration, anger, right? Like lack. So look at your triggers as beautiful, write them down, and then question them. And I think we're coming to the top of the hour, so I'm going to have you just ask yourself a couple things and write down in your journal, what do you truly desire when it comes to your financial well-being, to when it comes to the way you feel, the way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk? What do you truly desire? Write it out, riff it out, just go for like 2 minutes. And then on the next sheet, write down all the reasons why you believe you can't have those, why you believe that it's not possible for you. That's the gold right there, my friends. The gold is in those limiting beliefs, because it's only a belief and a story, and you can change that. You can, and I do it all the time with myself, with my clients. So I would love to invite you to have a couple offerings, and I'll put them in the chat here as well. So I have a masterclass coming up on the 8th, which is Friday at noon. And I'll be teaching all about rewriting our story with money. So you'll learn specific tools and techniques. We'll go into these journaling prompts. I have tons of journaling prompts to help you unroot and unearth these limiting beliefs. Because if you're new to this work, you don't know how to do it on your own, come join the masterclass. It's going to be awesome. It's priced at $57, but I created a discount, a 20% discount for anybody who showed up here. So I'll put that in the chat box. And then I would also love to invite anybody who is interested in having a one-on-one consult with me to maybe dive in, find some patterns that you're recreating that you want to end, and to see if doing this deeper work would be beneficial for you. You know, the trauma is real, and that's, like everybody else has said here, the trauma is really the place that really is wanting to be healed and to be looked at. So I don't know if I put that in the right place. No, I give that to Hara. Do you see, Liz?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. Shall I do it to panelists and attendees? Okay, perfect. And so you can find me on the social medias, on Facebook, Instagram at Lacey Gurr. My website is laceygur.com, LACEYGURR. Yeah, so you have a 20% discount for that masterclass coming up. And I have a really amazing 8-week online program that I'm revamping and putting in a lot of yummy, juicy stuff. I will be launching that in February. So just stay tuned in. Follow me on Instagram. I'm very interactive. I love being playful and sharing just my vulnerability and my humanness, because again, that's how we relate. That's how we connect. And if I can share my journey and my story, and I've experienced some sort of release and peace, that's my passion, is to impart that on other humans, because suffering is real, it sucks, and I've done a lot of work around it. So thank you so much. I love you all. Mwah.
Lacey. And so true. This is your mission.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yes. I've known Lacey for a while now, and she's very passionate about her work and lovely to work with. Awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Lacey? Okay, well, if anybody has any questions later, if you think of anything, we'll take those at the end too, since we'll have some extra time. Awesome. Thank you, Lacey. Now we're going to move on to Eva Papp, our last speaker of the day, because Amy could not make it today. Eva, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and read your bio.
Okay.
Eva Papp's first path was 20 years as a licensed psychotherapist in the state of Washington. She specialized in both brief and deep models of therapeutic engagement, brain science and interpersonal neurobiology, and integrative medicine orientation and practice, clinical work, and teaching. Her second path has been a lifelong curiosity with an investigation of human nature across cultures, ongoing studies of traditional wisdoms and their application to human performance, multicultural models of engagement and healing, continued research, both field and clinical. Her School of De Nova, details a signature course, the Via De Nova, a 3-month online course of study providing weekly lessons, exercises, group calls, lab to life challenges, and daily discussion forums. It's an individualized learning experience, meeting participants where they are, embracing online learning best practices. Eva, welcome. I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor here. Thank you.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. That was a fun walk down memory lane. I closed my practice 3 years ago, so I could really work on creating this curriculum, which is the bedrock of the school that I now have. So it's kind of fun to hear all of that. And the central tenet of my school is that it's critical that women step up with personal power to project out what is in their heart into the world. And the school teaches the real nitty-gritty of how do you experience personal power and how do you express it into the world. So here we are sitting in front of 2021. And clearly with that as my focus, my talk today is all about, well, what is personal power and how do we begin to develop it and the authenticity that's so critical for the transformation that I believe is upon us all. When people talk about power, and I think it even came up in the short time that I was here on the call today, we often associate power with sort of a more patriarchal paradigm where we're like, oh, power, and power is kind of so old-fashioned. The language of power doesn't really even begin to capture where we're headed. And so that's why I talk about personal power. Because personal power is all about fundamentally who you are and starting with ourselves as the very beginning from which all else proceeds. And so when we talk about personal power, we're really talking about who you are. And I want to be really clear here. I don't mean the evolved, uber spiritual, soul aligned self. I'm really talking about the flesh and blood self that loves and gets angry and hurts and wants to stay in bed, especially on a gray, rainy Northwest day. The self that really is messy, that has particular likes and dislikes and preferences, joys, talents, and convictions, the fully human, fully transcendent, fully 360 people that we all are. And that includes, as Lacey was talking about, that includes all of the shadow that we are. That includes the complexity of what it means to be born into a history and an experience and all kinds of things that were put on us that we took in and now are part of our neurobiology, as has already been mentioned. This is who we are in this moment. And this is who is called upon to be the agent of transformation and to be the person and the people that bring in the new that's coming, right? So I want to be really clear at the beginning that when I talk about personal power, I'm talking about really you, full 360 you power. And so as we're listening to this, it's really clear that we're talking about authenticity. And authenticity is a word that's like totally accepted in the culture now. It used to be, being authentic, but now everybody wants to be authentic because they see it as like self-branding and a way to create interest in what you're doing. What's my niche? Who am I? Like, how can I get people to see me and my perspective on things? And this is what's going to be compelling. This is what's going to drive the market. This is what's going to make people interested in me, right? The cat's out of the bag. Culturally, we understand the value of authenticity, right? In the most superficial way, maybe, but now we can talk about it and everybody kind of gets a sense, oh yeah, this is important. And in fact, I was walking down the street the other day and on a church in one of their, weekly billboards, there's a big sign that's be authentic. And I see things like this and I just had to laugh to myself. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And I'm there, obviously, I'm down with that message. But the truth is, people give these prescriptions and then they don't give us the how. Well, okay, I'm supposed to be authentic, but how do I act authentically? Like, what is that? And it's really interesting when I do my workshops and I'll say, something about authenticity, like women go into like a kind of a panic. Well, I don't really know who I am. And we may know some attributes about who we are. Like, I like to be active, or I'm an introvert, or I'm one of those many letters of one of those personality profile things, right? But when we sit and really think about, well, who am I think we all have to sort of acknowledge that there is this vagueness about it, and we don't really fully understand who we are, right? And so there's a kind of an anxiety that can go along with that. And for some, even a guilt. Oh my God, I'm supposed to know who I am, and I don't really know who I am. And oh, what a failure. And I'm doing something wrong, and whatever. So there's that piece of it. And then there's this other piece. Okay, well, I'm not where I need to be, but how am I supposed to get there? And the information is missing, right? Like so much information that's so important is missing, the how to. Anyway, but this is a really important one. So I want to rectify some of that today in my talk by talking about the process of becoming more authentic with oneself. And I want to start first by saying that, of course, nobody knows who they are. And I'm going to say this really bold thing that we're never going to know fully who we are, because it's a process, it's a fabric, it's like one of those platonic things on the hill. It's something that we set our sights toward. We never quite realize, right? But there's this process of getting toward that is critically important. To become more authentic, more aligned with who we are and our purpose, we got to be engaged with the process of authenticity. So we're off the hook in terms of really being there, but we're on the hook for being fully engaged in the process. It's going to continue to take us closer and closer to our truth, right? If we're interested in being authentic, which is one of the foundations of acting with personal power. So here's the process. The very first thing that we need to do on this journey to really fully and more deeply understanding who we truly are is to first ask the question, who am I at this time, in this moment, and in this particular situation, right? And as soon as we propose this question, we come up with one of the fundamental problems, specifically for women, is that no one's really, some of us have been lucky, but the vast majority of us have never been really told that who we are should even be considered as part of the equation of the decisions we make, how we evaluate where we are. We don't really fully understand, really, that we get to be part of the equation, always. Not just on things that appear to be about our next step, but in everything. Can I borrow the car? Okay, well, how does that relate to where I am right now in this moment and what matters to me, right? So the first thing is saying, okay, I matter enough. I get to ask this question and live with this question on an ongoing basis. Who am I in this moment, and where does my joy lie, my ease? What matters to me in this moment? Okay, so it's living with the question first, right? Who am I in this moment? Then the second thing is really hanging out to hear the answer. So I ask the question, and then maybe I reflect internally, but what am I hearing? Okay. Now, in the Via De Nova, this 3-month course that I do with women, we go on a deep dive in all of this, but I'm going to superficially lay this out a little bit. But I coined this term, the power triad, which is a data center that really use the 3 channels of emotion, of the mind, and of the body, the sensory information, to really understand what's happening for us in each moment. So we ask the question, we tune into, hey, what is my mind saying? What is my body? What's the information my body's giving me? What are my emotions saying? And how does this relate to me understanding where I sit right now in relation to the situation, the question that's in front of me? So we turn in where we listen, but the problem is that so many of us are not in the habit of referencing our bodies, for instance, to get information about what might be right for us, that we've forgotten what it sounds like to hear our bodies. And so the voice, quote unquote, that comes through can be very faint and almost unrecognizable, right? And so this is a problem when working with the power triad, is that we're so out of practice with really deeply listening to ourselves that sometimes we can't even hear the information coming through. So that's one thing. Then the other thing, and this goes to some of the work that Lacey was talking about, and I assume Elizabeth was talking about in the beginning, that there's a bit of work here that has to happen to tease out what is authentically me and what's been layered into my understanding of who I am. And the cultural dictates that say, this is who I should be. This is who I should, this is how I should act or perform in this. This is what I should want. That one always kills me. This is what you should want, right? But it's in there, right? So we got to do the work of teasing that out. That's critical, right? So I call this kind of work truing the channels. And once one has done the deeper work of truing the channels, right? And it's a process itself that takes place over time. One begins to get the data from the power triad. It becomes more and more clear, more and more truthful, and then more and more actionable because it aligns with really who we are. So the first thing is we ask the question, we breathe the question, we live the question, who am I in this moment? 2, we stay and listen and have done the work to clarify what our power triad is telling us. And then the third really important thing, we take action on the information that comes back to us. And why is taking action so important? First off, why try to be authentic and live that life if you're not going to reap the benefits of it, right? Taking action is where the joy of making decisions that reference and reflect and champion who we are come back to us and start to impact our own lives. So that action piece is really, really important, right? Plus, and this is very, very important, when we take action, we get further data. The data that comes back further informs our understanding of the choices that we make. What really is aligned? Oh, I could have maybe gone this way and it would have shifted my understanding in a better way. Or that wasn't quite right. Oh, next time I'm going to do this. And so in taking action, we get data that helps us further refine our understanding of who we are, right? So it feeds this ongoing process. It's really alive, right? So 3 things. We ask the question, we true our channels and listen to what they have to say, and then we take action to complete that circle and then get more data for the next time. So that is the process really of living in authenticity or being on that road to authenticity. So as you can see, as we understand who we are and we can bring our actions more into alignment with who we are, and we take those actions, we begin to have a system for channeling what matters to us out into the world and starting to create the transformations that are dear to our heart, to see them come alive externally, right? Our world starts to reflect who we are. And there, I believe, lies the transformation that's coming. But it's not just this thing of acting with authenticity and personal. Individual power is not just about making changes out there. It profoundly affects our own experience and creates the potential for tremendous transformation internally, right? And there, I mean, this goes in a lot of different directions. I'm just going to bring up a couple just to show you how this dynamic begins to improve our own lives and our own lived experience. So the first thing, when we live with this level of alignment, personal alignment and authenticity, we know who we are and who we are not. So what becomes very clear in time are the boundaries, the yes, this is who I am, and the no, this is who I am not. We start to really get a clear sense of the boundaries of who we are, all right? And once we have that, then we have a sense of the continuum between our yes and our no, and where we can sit, right? To act with not only security and safety, but this, what I call an optimal zone of action that lies between, right? This becomes clear as we act authentically. That's one thing. Another thing is when we say, I matter, right? And I'm going to act with my authenticity. We're not talking about the authentic you that shows up to the office on time or shows up and makes dinner for the family and the kids or yourself or whomever, right? We are talking about 360 you, right? We're talking about the you that has her own individual pleasures and joys and satisfactions. They matter, right? So when we start to treat things that are about us, that serve us and not necessarily anybody else with that level of seriousness, say, for instance, let's just take our pleasure. When we start using our pleasure as a metric for our choices, guess what? We're going to start bringing more pleasure into our lives right now. We're going to start enriching our lives with things that matter to us because we're going to start making choices based on those things. And pleasure is not the only one in our 360. What about security? How do I experience security? What is going to contribute to me being more secure? I'm going to privilege that. Hey, what about the thing that makes me feel loved? Not what everybody says loved is, what makes me feel loved. And I'm going to start privileging that, or my sense of belonging. We are 360. And when we start treating our authentic self with that level of regard, our life starts to change. Our experience of life begins to change internally as well as externally. And just the last thing, when we really take ourselves seriously, we no longer expect ourselves to be all and everything, right? We get to have limits, and accepting those limits creates tremendous liberation. So in other words, for example, we can drop the story about what we want to be, but then we don't really care about, and putting all this energy and time and resources into becoming something that truly isn't part of who we are and that maybe we don't even care about, right? And when we start acknowledging our limitations and all parts of ourselves, what happens, and we start showing up authentically, we create a platform for renewed intimacy with ourselves, but with others, because we are being who we really are. And guess what? When we are that and really make choices and take actions based on that, who we are becomes clearer into view. There's a crispness to who we are, and others see it. And guess what? Then you start drawing those people into your life. And you start surrounding yourself with people who really vibrate in the way that matters to you and reflect who you are, because you're not performative about something that's not really you and drawing all those people into your, they're just mucking things up, really, right? So being authentic in that way creates this platform of intimacy that can then have profound implications for, many different things. So you can see that this thing of being authentic and working from personal power has this profound potential for personal transformation as well. And I just want everybody to take a minute and really sit with this notion of you living fully yourself and who you are. And just, you can even close your eyes and just feel what that feels like. Here you are, you know what gives you pleasure. You know what deeply satisfies you. and that you make choices based on that. And not only you, but the next person is doing the same thing. And that means also knowing what your gifts are and living into your gifts. You're doing it. She's doing it. The next person's doing it. And just get a sense, feel into that, what our communities would be like. The ease, the joy, the improved communications and connections that would come from people risking and being who they are authentically. The potential for transformation is profound. And so that's the thing, I wanted to invite you all to, as we enter into 2021, is to really go deep, allowing all of who you are to be part of the equation of the transformation. So that's it for what I wanted to share today. Oh, it gets me all excited. Anyway, so if anyone's interested in going deeper on any of these pieces, doing the deep dive of, clearing out the channels or any of the things we talked about and, much, much, much more, take a look at my website. It's all there. My Via De Nova class that dives into all of this. And it's just my name, www.evapapp.com. It's all the information about the school you could want. And it is registering now, starting on January 24th. And it really goes through, this course goes through the A to Z of living with power, and it's designed for women. So it starts off a little bit like we did today with, who am I? How do I know who I am in the most complex way? Once I know who I am, how do I parlay that into action, what I call right action, to express that into the world with power and success? And then it goes into, okay, so now we know who we are. We're going to take these actions and we're all excited, but we are going to express ourselves into the world, and a world that's not always interested in who we are or being supportive or welcoming of who we are. So then the whole next section talks about, well, what are the appropriate boundaries, internal boundaries, external boundaries to actually shepherd ourselves out into the world. And then the final piece of the course talks about what is the most elevated, exquisite expression of who we are, and how do we get in touch with that, and how do we shepherd that out in the world. And that last section is called Fluid Dreaming. And then that's how we end the course. So if anybody's interested in any of that, make sure to visit my website. And for those that are here today, I have a 10% off discount. It's called, just put in Raise the Vibe with Liz on when you register for a 10% discount. So thank you all. It was really fun, and it's fun being with such a wonderful group of like-minded women. Thank you.
And thank you, Eva. That was great. Wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for Eva before I bring everybody back for questions? You can type it in the chat or in the Q&A is available. Okay, I'm gonna bring everybody back. And you guys should be able to unmute now. Great. Thank you, everyone. What a great day.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thanks, Liz.
Does anybody, thanks. Does anybody have any questions for any of the guests or anything in general that you would like to discuss or bring up or have questions for the group? We do have time. All right.
Hey, Liz, can I say something?
Yes, please.
I just noticed a couple of people wrote and were wondering about working one-on-one with me. And so anybody who's attended this, I would just say that you attended Liz's event, and I'll give you the friends and family plan in terms of one-on-one work. So that just to put that offer on the table.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. That's awesome. What a gift. Great. All right, guys. Well, thanks for helping me start 2021, get it off to a great start. I appreciate you and everything you brought today. It was beautiful content, and it's my honor and pleasure to have each and every one of you and be able to share you with everybody. So thank you so much for being here with me today. It was awesome. And yeah,
Thanks. You are amazing humans.
Mhm.
they are, aren't they? All of you are.
We all are.
Yes.
Everyone. Even the ones behind the screen that we can't see, or I can't see.
Exactly.
All of the participants.
Yes. And thank you, attendees, for joining us today. It's been wonderful to host this event for you from Washington and California, Mexico, Israel, and to my Vashon family and friends. Thank you for joining us today. It was amazing. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Happy 2021. Remember to keep resilient and remember to get out there and raise the vibe and contact these guys. Look them up, search their emails. I'll be sending you links to all of them, and I'll be sending you the links that they shared in the chat. So don't worry about that. And I'll follow up in a few days by sending you the replay. And remember to come find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Raise the Vibe with Liz and the podcast. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks, Eva, Katie, Elizabeth.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Love you all. Happy
You
New
all see you
Year.
on Vashon soon.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Happy New Year. Thanks, Liz. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.